So getting back to the John Benet Ramsey case and the recent discussions around it due to the Netflix special that's come out, in light of we just talked about John going back to the DNA evidence thing, we have an article here, newer article here, kind of talking about how the Boulder police are speaking out. Now, John did say in a previous article that we read, John did say that he's working with Boulder police now, and he's hopeful that, you know, there will be some positive directions moving forward. And not only that, but I guess what do you call it, producer or something like that, or right, or whatever, director of the new docu-series for John Benet that's going to be on Netflix, or that is on Netflix. He said it was interesting to see that there were so many theories that were going on Reddit and online and on these posts and on these forums. And he said that essentially what he was trying to get at is that it's clear that there was an intruder. That kind of made me mad, because it was like, no, the heck it's not. What are you talking about? There's clear evidence that you can argue with it within a reason. Like there could be a reasonable doubt that even if I'm giving you the intruder theory, we have plenty of reason to believe that the intruder theory is incorrect and that it was done by somebody inside the home. Anyways, so this is what the Boulder police have to say on their annual update one day after Netflix aired its 3-episode docuseries on the case. So we'll start with a brief video here.
Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern says his department is determined to follow up on every lead in their investigation into the killing of John Benet Ramsey. Next month will mark 28 years since the 6-year-old was found strangled in her home. Netflix started streaming a new documentary series this month that re-examines the case and criticizes how police handled evidence. In an interview on CNN today, John Benet's father expressed confidence that police could find his daughter's killer as long as they accept outside help.
Given today's technology, it can be solved. I'm convinced of it if that technology is used. That's all we're asking the police to do, is use the latest technology. They've got to go outside. They don't have the capacity. If they do that and we come up empty-handed, then I'll say, well, thank you. At least we tried. We tried everything that could be done. Right now, we're not doing that.
Boulder police say the claim that there are leads they're not choosing to pursue is false. The chief sent out a video press release today, which does not allow us to ask our own questions. However, we are sharing the chief's comments because he indirectly responds to criticism in the documentary.
Is that we have thoroughly investigated multiple people identified as suspects throughout the years, and we continue to be open-minded about what occurred as we investigate the tips that come into detectives. There are a number of things that people have pointed to throughout the years that could have been done better, and we acknowledge that is true.
The chief says detectives have kept an open line of communication with John Benet's family over the years. He says the last conversation they had was in the middle of this year. Boulder police will not give any interviews or comment on specifics of the crime, citing an open investigation. But they urge anyone with information that could help them solve the case to contact them.
So this is the thing about that. And like I said, that kind of triggered me before I move on. John keeps on acting as if Boulder police are not trying to use everything available to them. And I happen to think they are. Were there blunders in the beginning? Absolutely. But we have, individuals stating that there were blunders because of the way we had to handle the case from the beginning, because of the wealthy family that we were dealing with. This was one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest family in Boulder, Colorado at the time. I believe, and I don't have anything to back that up, I'm just saying, given what I've kind of peruse through on John and, you know, his business Access Graphics and its connection to Lockheed Martin and how he was Entrepreneur of the Year and the company grossed $1 billion and all, so on and so forth. And buying the 4-story home or the 3-story home with the basement. I consider, sometimes people consider the basement 1 story. So like the 4-story home, I would say whoever this individual was, John being the individual, the man had money, he had a private jet, and that's for another discussion when we dig into John. But this idea that the police had the capacity to do everything that they want to do just blows me away every single time, because it's like, no, they didn't. And we've gone through some of the interviews where Patsy and John were stonewalling, even with their attorney in the deposition. That's what's throwing me. So let's get to this article. The Boulder Police Department, and this is their response to John. John had done an earlier interview, and he's on this interview tour, drumming up, for everybody to believe. And this is no doubt, because I was wondering, why would John be on board with this docuseries? And it's not like he can't, but, I was just wondering how he felt about it. He's on board with it because it's the intruder theory, and it takes the pressure off of the family. So, of course, he's on board with it. And it also shines more pressure on the idea that it's the same old tired narrative. The cops aren't doing their job. They don't want to do their job. If they will do their job, we can solve it, all such as that, and so on and so forth. So the article says that the Boulder Police Department released its annual update on the investigation into JonBenet Ramsey's murder on Tuesday, 1 month before what would be 28 years since the child was found dead inside of her home. On December 26, 1996, 6-year-old JonBenet was reported missing from her home located in the 700 block of 15th Street after her family found a ransom note. Patsy Ramsey, her mother, called 911 at 5:52 a.m. That's good. I'm wanting to kind of keep that timeline in my head. 5:52 a.m. that day, frantically telling police that JonBenet had been kidnapped. Her body was later found inside the basement of the home, and an autopsy determined her cause of death was strangulation. JonBenet's murder has not been solved despite nearly 3 decades worth of searching. Detectives have followed up on more than 21,000 tips and spoken to more than 1,000 people across 19 states about the case, according to the city of Boulder. 21,000 tips. And this man, my God. Now, I know this is reported from, the cops. I know this is their stuff in 1,000 people. But if that, come on, let's refute that. And that's why that makes me so angry. Because John is going around here saying, cops aren't doing anything. If they would just listen. 21,000 tips. And you're telling me about 2 or 3 intruders that you want to 2 or 3. Gary Oliva, John Marcar, and I think it's Chris Wolf. These are the people that you're telling me about. This is 3 people. That's only 3. 21,000 tips, and more than 1,000 people have we talked to across 19 of the 50 states. Come on, show some respect, John. The killing of JonBenet was an unspeakable crime, and this tragedy has never left our hearts. Boulder Police Chief Steve Redfern said in the update provided via X, "We are committed to following up on every lead, and we are continuing the work with DNA experts and our law enforcement partners around the country." Because you remember, John had said that they don't want to work with anybody else. Until this tragic case is solved, this investigation will always be a priority for the Boulder Police Department, because it's one of the biggest cases that has defined their area, their city. So, of course, why not try to get this done? Boulder Police's annual updates on JonBenet's murder case are usually shared in December. However, the department said it was releasing this year's update early due to the increased attention on this investigation, probably because of Netflix, no doubt. On Monday, November 25th, Netflix released Cold Case, Who Killed John Benet Ramsey, a 3-episode docuseries about the case, which is currently trending on the streaming platform. Although police did not make a direct reference to the Netflix docuseries in their update, they refuted a couple statements that were made in it, including one from John Ramsey, John Benet's father. I knew it. If anything, if they're going to refute anything, it's going to be from John, because John keeps on just jumping out here and saying any and everything that he wants to say. Man. So if it's anything, then they're like, look, man, John, you got to sit down and be quiet, man. Please stop talking to us. Just leave us alone. What we're advocating for, they say, and we have been doing so for the last year or so aggressively, is, and who's saying this? Okay, this is John saying. What we're advocating for, and we have been doing so for the last year or so aggressively, so that would be in 2023, aggressively, is we know there's 5 or 6 items that were taken from the crime scene, sent into a lab for DNA sampling, and were not sampled. Ramsey says in the series, third and final episode. In their yearly update, Boulder police said the assertion that there is viable evidence and leads we are not pursuing to include DNA testing is completely false. In its final episode, the docuseries also states that the Colorado Bureau of Investigations assembled a panel of experts to review John Benet's cold case in 2023. Boulder Police's update emphasized that it was their department, not the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, who convened a cold case review panel. Okay. The Boulder Police Department has...
What's up there, Phil?
This is Phil Scalaro, also known as Phil Miller. That's the name law enforcement...
What we're advocating for, and we have been doing so for the last year or so aggressively, is we know that there's 5 or 6 items that were taken from the crime scene, sent into a lab for DNA sampling, and were not sampled. You know, when we look back, and this is what John is saying, and he's apparently said this in the series, his 3rd and final episode. John is we talked about this before. In some cases, John is certain and he speaks with definitive language. For example, in the last article we reviewed, he talked about how, the holdup with this case is that, for 25 years, the cops just have not wanted to look at outside tips and receive help on the investigation. It's like 21,000 tips, John. 1,000 people, 19 states. Okay, you're pushing a narrative that's already legitimately been debunked. If we're to believe what the Colorado police are telling us about the number of tips they followed up on, the people they've talked to, so on and so forth. Ramsey said in the 3rd and final episode, in their yearly update, Boulder police said the assertion that there is viable evidence and leads we are not pursuing to include DNA testing is completely false. In its final episode, the docuseries also states that the Colorado Bureau of Investigation assembled a panel of experts to review John Benet's cold case in 2023. Boulder Police's update emphasized that it was their department, not the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, who convened a cold case review panel. See, you jump on a docuseries and you don't even got your facts straight, trying to give credit to other people. And I don't like this. I don't like when you do that, because if you can overlook, something as small as that, something, a detail as small as that, if this is your whole life to, and your dad to, and what have you to, and you're making this case and you're really interested in doing right by this case, it's like you are trying as hard as possible. I don't like it, to smear the Boulder, Colorado police. And I don't like it because it's totally distracting. It has nothing to do with the case. That was 25 years. We get it. You think that they screwed up. We get it. But when they asked you in a way to rectify that situation by trying to exhume John Benet's body, you said no. So we're trying to make it right, but you won't allow us to. I wonder if DNA technology, if we exhume the body, if DNA technology would be good enough to sort of, I want to say, rectify again any issues that we may run into in terms of the DNA, because there's a lot of confusion around the DNA. It's an unknown male sample or what have you. But I tend to believe that the scene was contaminated, right? Because you have so many people moving in and out of the scene. Who can know? The Boulder Police Department has received criticism for its handling of the John Bonet's murder case, including from her family members. We got that, who were once suspects. In 2022, a petition to Governor Jared Polis asked to transfer evidence away from Boulder Police, allowing a separate agency to investigate the case. John Bonet's father publicly supported that petition. Nearly 28 years later, after John Bonet's murder, Boulder Police are still looking for answers. The department is asking anyone with information about the case to contact detectives from the Boulder's Most Wanted list, or by calling the Boulder Police tip line. Now, I don't care about whether there's a transition of the information out of Boulder's hands and into somebody else's hands. You know, that's fine with me. It is what it is. Whatever you have to do in the name of clarity and transparency, absolutely do all that. But I guess what I'm saying is we have to be careful in that we're just not trying to take from Boulder what they're doing and trying to throw them off track with what they have. And if they're rolling, we need to better understand what they have, so that if they're rolling, we can keep them rolling. And we're not just trying to support a petition to take something out of their hand, when it's like, I mean, if we get into somebody else's hands, they're going to have to start from square one. They're not going to know any context of what we're talking about. But at the same time, too, having fresh eyes could be helpful. And I don't see Boulder not being open to that. So that's my take on that, man. I think, obviously this, for John and the Boulder Police, this brings up an opportunity to do a lot of mudslinging at one another and going back and forth. That's really what there's going to be a conversation about. So going to look at some more stuff. And until next video, thanks for watching and take it easy.